Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into Nelson Mandela's incredible autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. We're going to break down his epic journey and the really profound wisdom he shared with the world. So, let's kick things off with this powerful quote from Mandela himself. It just perfectly sums up the spirit of his life, right? He was up against a system that seemed totally impossible to defeat, and yet he did. This one idea is really the bedrock of his whole story. All right, so to really get a handle on his journey, we're going to walk through these 6 key themes from his book. We'll cover everything from that day of ultimate victory all the way back to the depths of the struggle and the personal changes he went through. Now, our story actually begins at the end, or what feels like the end, at the triumphant climax, the inauguration. This was the day a new South Africa was born. Picture this. It's May 10th, 1994. You're in Pretoria, a place that for decades was the very heart of white supremacy. And on this day, the biggest gathering of world leaders ever seen on South African soil is there. And why? To watch the birth of the country's very first democratic, non-racial government. Just incredible. And in his first speech as president, Mandela put it perfectly. He didn't see it as just a victory for his side or just for Black South Africans. No, he called it a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity, for everyone. But, to really feel the weight of that victory, we have to go back. We have to understand the deep, dark place it came from. We have to talk about apartheid. So, what was apartheid? Well, it was a system baked into the law of total racial segregation. It was specifically designed to strip people with dark skin of their most fundamental rights as human beings. And this wasn't just some brief, terrible chapter. This was a structure of profound cruelty that was built in the early 1900s. It held the country in its grip for almost a century before it was finally brought down. Mandela himself didn't pull any punches when he talked about it. He called it one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known, a system that left a deep, lasting wound on his country and all of its people. Now, it was inside this furnace of oppression that Mandela forged a totally new way of thinking about a virtue we all talk about, courage. Okay, this part is so insightful. He completely flips the script on what we think courage is. We're often taught that courage means you're not afraid, but Mandela says, nope, that's not it at all. He learned that real courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about triumphing over it. The brave person isn't someone who doesn't feel fear. They're the one who feels that fear and conquers it anyway. And this wasn't some abstract idea he came up with. He learned it by watching the people around him in the struggle. Men like these, who he saw risk everything, even their lives, for what they believed in. They were tortured, but they wouldn't break. They showed a strength that was just beyond imagination. And this quote just captures it all so beautifully. Yeah, South Africa is famous for its diamonds, its gold, but what Mandela realized through all this struggle was that the country's true treasure, its real wealth, was its people, their resilience, their spirit, finer and truer than any diamond. So that brings us to our next big idea. Mandela's own idea of what freedom even meant wasn't something that was just fixed. It was constantly growing and changing right along with him. You can really see his journey right here. As a little boy, he thought he was free, running around the fields. But that was an illusion. Then as a student, he just wanted simple, personal freedoms, like staying out late. As a young man, he wanted the freedom to have a job, a family. But then it became so much bigger. It grew into a hunger for the freedom of all his people. And this is the key. This bigger hunger, this desire for everyone's freedom is what transformed him. It took a young man who was afraid and made him bold. It took a lawyer who respected the law and turned him into a revolutionary, a criminal in the eyes of a system that was itself criminal. But dedicating your life to your people's freedom, that comes with a heavy price. For Mandela, it created this impossible conflict between two of the most basic duties in life. So Mandela talks about what he calls these twin obligations. The first one is to your family, your parents, your partner, your kids. The second one is to your people, your community, your country. And in a just, normal world, a person can try to fulfill both. But in apartheid South Africa, no way. That was completely impossible. The system was literally designed to prevent it. If you were a black man and you tried to serve your people, you were punished. You'd be ripped away from your family and your home, totally isolated. You were forced into this impossible choice. Fulfilling your duty to your community meant you were blocked from fulfilling your duty to your own family. And this all leads to his final, and maybe his most challenging insight. This is a piece of wisdom that he only arrived at after decades of struggle, of sacrifice, of being locked away.
He asks a question that basically turns our entire understanding of freedom upside down. When you look at a system of oppression, who is actually in prison?
And his answer is both of them. I mean, obviously, the oppressed person is a prisoner, robbed of their freedom. But look at the other side. The oppressor, he argues, is also a prisoner. They're a prisoner of their own hatred, locked up behind the bars of their own prejudice. And this is the final, crucial takeaway from his long, long walk. To be truly free, you can't just liberate the oppressed. You must also liberate the oppressor, because both are robbed of their humanity. And real freedom, true freedom, means restoring that humanity to everyone. It's a huge idea, and it leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? What chains, the ones we can see and the ones we can't, are still out there, waiting to be broken?